Hello everybody. Welcome to this live on hormone testing. I have a lot to share today. I want to talk all about hormones and why we need to test them, when we should test them in our cycles, all the good stuff. I've got a whole list of things here written down actually so that I can remember to go through everything. I feel like hormone testing is one of the biggest questions I get, and I hear about it all the time. And I'm always hearing stories along the lines of, oh, I tested my hormones and I didn't know that I had to test them at certain times in my cycle, or my doctor never told me that, and so are they inaccurate? And then other people will say, oh, well, my doctor doesn't want to test my hormones because hormones change so much. There's just a lot of confusion, and I really want to make it a little bit simple for everybody. Part of this is a little bit of a celebration because it's Women's Health Week, so that's the first thing. And secondly, I have a discount available with my favorite at-home hormone testing company, Let's Get Checked, and it's 25% off of any hormone test kit or however much you purchase, because you can buy multiple test kits, and that's with the code hormones25. So that's really helpful. I feel like if you go to your doctor and your doctor isn't interested in testing your hormones or doesn't know when to test them, I also, with the purchase of a Let's Get Checked test kit, I have for free my hormone testing cheat sheet, and that breaks this all down. So I'm going to talk about that a little bit here today because I have it pulled up and I want to make sure I hit all of these points. So if you have questions about this, then feel free to leave them here. And we'll go into, what I wanted to talk about. So I think the first thing is like, why should I test my hormones in the first place? And I'm a health coach, so I'm not a doctor. I will just preface all of this by saying that I am not qualified to interpret test results or any of those kinds of things or make diagnoses or anything like that. However, one can look at test results from the training that I've done and kind of see, where things are and make recommendations to see a doctor for diagnosis based on something that I might see. So, you don't need an MD in order to know that, to be able to look at these things and kind of see discrepancies and see things that might be off and correlate with symptoms. So, sorry, just got a phone call. Anyway, the first thing everyone really wants to be doing is paying attention to your symptoms. And so I talk about this all the time. I talk about the fact that we really need to be paying attention to the symptoms that show up every single month with our cycle and just in general, so that we know what is going on with our individual health, because this is really what it comes down to, right? The future of medicine is personalized medicine, is individualized medicine. And in order for us to make that work for us, we have to know what's going on with our bodies. Gone are the days where you can go to the doctor and just hope that the doctor's going to fix whatever problem you have. There's way too much information out there right now. There are too many people like me who are telling you that you need to take responsibility for your health and be your own best advocate, because no one else is going to do that for you, and we really shouldn't be expecting them to. So we can't be taking our bodies to the doctor like we would take our car to the mechanic. My car, I don't have any interest in knowing what's going on with it. I just want the person who is the professional to fix it. Our bodies, different story, because we have to live in them and we have to treat them right in order for us to get what we need to get out of them. So with all of that said, cycle tracking and paying attention to your symptoms every month can tell you so much. So women say to me all the time, something along the lines of, I tested my progesterone and it's low. And I'm like, okay, so what symptoms are you experiencing? Because your progesterone may be on the lower end of the range, for instance, but it's not necessarily going to be problematic for you unless you're experiencing problems. So signs of low progesterone are things like spotting for many days in your luteal phase in the lead up to your period, as well as heavy periods, sometimes crampiness and pain in the lead up to your period and then the beginning of your period. That's another sign too, because progesterone is an anti-inflammatory. It's sort of a soothing, calming hormone, as well as PMS symptoms or emotional symptoms that feel like they take over your life. Those could also be a sign too that progesterone is low. So all of these are symptoms that you can be paying attention to throughout your cycle in order to determine whether your progesterone might be low. You can take your basal body temperature every single morning. So that's your temperature using a basal thermometer first thing upon awakening. And if your temperatures tend to be on the lower side in the second half of your cycle, in the luteal phase, then that might be an indication too. It also might be an indication of low thyroid function as well, because your thyroid determines your metabolism and your basal temperature. So these are all connected. And you can learn all of this by just doing a little bit of period detective work. So that's the first thing that I want everyone to understand, is that we really have to do our part in terms of, getting an idea of what's normal and what's not for us. So in terms of testing your hormones, why should we test them? Well, I feel like it's really helpful for us to determine a baseline. So each of us, again, like I said, have different symptoms, and some of us might have different hormone levels and feel fine, whereas others might not. So I remember years ago, I was in Dr. Sarah Gottfried's practitioner training program. So this is probably 8 or 9 years ago at this point. And she had a doctor named Andrew Goldstein. He's a well-known doctor in the pelvic health world, pelvic pain world. And he was talking about different hormone receptors. And so I felt like this was a really good analogy. So he was saying that some women have hormone receptors that are super sensitive, that are kind of like hybrids, and basically, only sip hormones, meaning that they don't need a lot of hormone circulating in the body to get them going and for you to start feeling the effects of that hormone. Whereas other women are gas guzzlers or hormone guzzlers. They're kind of like Hummers. So it's like the Hummers versus the hybrids. So again, if our hormone receptors are sensitive or not so sensitive, that'll also determine how we respond to hormones in the body. So some of us might not need as much hormone than others. And that's why some of us do okay on hormonal birth control, whereas others don't, because you're getting a lower dose hormone birth control in some cases, and you end up not feeling so great. And it's because you probably need more hormone. You also need to be ovulating, but that's a whole other story. My point is that we all just want to determine our own individual baseline when it comes to our hormones. And you want to have a record of your test results. I have a folder on my desktop that has a record of all my test results, probably over the last 8 or 9 years. And those are really helpful because, again, the ranges on test results are wide and they're varying depending on the lab, the city you live in, the state, the country you live in. So much determines these test ranges. The problem with the test ranges is that they also are determined by sick people, because as we know, it's mostly sick people who are going for testing, not so much healthy people or people who have symptoms who are going for this testing. And so the bell curve that is created based on people who are not well. And so if you are not feeling great, but you don't actually have, you don't have a diagnosable problem just yet because your test results show on the range as being normal, that's not great, because you want to catch that thing and address it before it becomes an actual pathology, right? Before it actually is a problem on the test results. But the test results, again, the baseline is someone who's not well. So I feel like we have to be aware of all of these things. So make sure you have your test results. Always ask for them, store them, on your computer or something like that, or print them and keep them. And just remember too that ranges vary significantly, which is why in the functional medicine or the functional medicine, naturopathic medicine world, they tend to focus on what's known as optimal ranges or functional ranges. And so these ranges are typically more narrow. So if any of you are watching this and you've seen my post today, I was sharing the optimal thyroid ranges that are in my book. And these are quite different to what you would see if you just went to the doctor and you had your thyroid tested and you saw the ranges from that particular lab that you went to, because those again are based on people who are having overt thyroid problems because that's what, has been determined that is what has determined these ranges. And with the functional ranges, this is where we're trying to prevent overt disease from happening. So the ranges are more narrow. So that's what you'll see if you look at that thyroid post today. So just keep that in mind. So we know why we should test our hormones. We want that baseline. We want to know if our symptoms are correlating with different hormonal imbalances. And keep in mind, everybody, hormones don't just work by themselves. All of them are in communication with each other, right? All of the endocrine glands are communicating with each other through hormone secretion. And so your brain is talking to your adrenals, your thyroid, your ovaries, your pancreas, your pineal gland is also communicating with all of the different organs as well, or the endocrine glands as well. So just keep in mind that you can't just have one hormonal imbalance. It doesn't really work like that. You could have low progesterone, no doubt, but you have to figure out why you have the low progesterone. And it's likely due to either, you're not ovulating consistently for some reason. It could be something to do with the stress in your life. And so those stress hormones would be dysregulated as well. And you might even have thyroid dysfunction in addition to that too, because stress downregulates your thyroid function. So all of it's connected. So just remember, if you have low progesterone, this is not just like an individual one-time thing that's happening. It's not isolated by any means. It is caused by something else. I feel like I'm going to do a reel on this actually, on progesterone, because I got a lot to say about that. So we'll get to that. Yes, so I'm getting there. I'm getting to these questions. Don't worry. So when in your cycle to test your hormones? First of all, there are multiple ways to test hormones. There is blood, also known as serum. There is saliva, there is urine, and then there's dried urine. So these are the multiple ways. The easiest way for most of us is to do blood or serum because we can go to our doctor and we can get the test done. For those of us in the US, it's covered by insurance, generally speaking. So, that's relatively easy to do. Another option is at-home testing. Like I said, I partnered with Let's Get Checked, and I've been using their testing services for a number of years now. So that's an option as well too. And then of course there's at-home saliva testing. There's the Dutch test. So that's the dried urine test. But I feel like it's really helpful for a lot of us to focus on just the basics to start, because we can do a Dutch test, and I'm a big fan of the Dutch test. People keep asking me about this, and I am a big fan of it. I've done multiple Dutch tests in my life, and I recommend it to people, but it really isn't necessary unless you know the baseline for follicle stimulating hormone, luteinizing hormone, estradiol, progesterone, testosterone, DHEA, and SHBG. So I talk about all of these in my testing guide, and it'll be for sale on my website next week because I feel like it has a lot of really valuable information in it. And the point is that if you get those, you can determine so much. Like there's a lot that we don't realize that those key hormones can tell us. And so FSH, LH, estradiol, typically you would test those on days 2 to 4 of your cycle, but preferably day 3. And essentially we do that for multiple reasons. But FSH and LH are the 2 hormones that come from your pituitary to talk to your ovaries. And so you want to make sure that they are within a certain range on that day of your cycle so that you know that your brain is actually talking to your ovaries and that things are going well. If your FSH is too high on that day, and your LH as well, but FSH in particular, if it's too high on that day, what that means is that your ovaries are not responding to the signal that's coming from your brain. And usually the way that the brain knows that is that your ovaries, the little follicles on your ovaries, start to produce estradiol. And so estradiol is going to signal from your ovaries to your brain that it's getting the message that the brain is sending the FSH. So if FSH is higher or too high or above the range, what that means is your ovaries are just not responding properly and they're not making enough estrogen to tell your brain to slow down the production of FSH. So that's where we run into problems because that test alone can tell you so much. It can tell you very clearly that something's going on with your ovarian function and you need to start to look deeper into that. And the ways to address that are all the ways I've been talking about forever and ever. I've been talking about this in my book. I've been talking about this on my website, in my programs like Harness Your Hormones as well. And basically what it is that you've got to work on your diet. The food that you're eating has the most profound effect on your ovarian function. Your ovaries need iron, they need vitamin C, they need vitamin D, they need a whole host of minerals like magnesium and iodine and zinc in order to work properly. And in fact, all of those nutrients have a significant impact on one part of your ovarian function or another. So it's really important for us to remember that that's the foundation. And then from there you move on to the next phase, like maybe gut healing or, working on your liver detoxification. So there's multiple aspects to this, but ultimately, you start with the basics. That's all we can do. We start with what we can control. So days 2 to 4 or day 3, you're looking at FSH, LH, estradiol. I also have people test prolactin on that day as well. Prolactin is another hormone that can be high, and it doesn't mean necessarily that, it's only high when we're breastfeeding, because that's when it's supposed to be high because it induces breast milk production. But it can be high due to a pituitary tumor. It can be high due to unmitigated psychological stress that's going on for a long period of time. See that all the time as well. I've also kind of had that issue myself. And it can also be high when there's low dopamine. So there are multiple reasons why you might have high prolactin, but if your prolactin is too high, it will inhibit ovulation, and you don't need to be pregnant or breastfeeding to have high prolactin. So just keep in mind that could be another part too. So that'll tell you a lot as well. And then from there, you want to then wait 5 to 7 days after ovulation to test progesterone. So someone said to me yesterday, well, it says all over the internet that you test on days 19 to 21 for your progesterone. Yeah, I know, it does. It also says all over the internet that periods come every 28 days and most of us ovulate on day 14, which is not actually true. So just keep in mind, right, that periods can come all different times. Usually I like to see a window of 25 to 35 days for a cycle. That means that ovulation really could happen anywhere between like days 12 and 21. That's, my ideal. That's where I like to see. In an ideal world, I would love to see ovulation happen somewhere between days 14 and like 17 for everyone, but that's not the case. And again, that's because life is intense right now. There's a lot of stress. There's a lot of sugar consumption. We have a lot of gut health issues. So there's a lot of things happening that are preventing ovulation from happening consistently, within that window. So anyway, 25 to 35 days is what I like to see. Again, if we are basing our testing on the fact that everyone ovulates on day 14, and then as such we will test on days 19 to 21, 5 to 7 days post-ovulation, that's a huge problem, because if you have PCOS or you ovulated late in your cycle, you're not going to get an accurate progesterone number. So if your progesterone is like 0.5 or less, then you did not ovulate in that cycle, or you had not ovulated yet when you tested that progesterone. And that is not going to tell you anything. That's a waste of your time, your doctor's time, your money if you paid for it. And you then have to go and do it again. So it doesn't really make any sense to me. So anyway, the point is that we need to track our cycles. If we have irregular cycles, you can still track your cycle. Everyone asks me that. You can still take your temperature every day. You will see a temperature shift after ovulation, probably a little bit later than someone who, say, ovulated on day 15, but it doesn't matter. It doesn't change the rules of the testing. You still want to test 5 to 7 days post-ovulation to get that accurate progesterone number to see whether you ovulated, because sometimes we might not be. If you don't track your cycle, or if you don't take your temperature and know pretty precisely when you ovulated, then I suggest paying attention to your cervical fluid changes, or if you have any kind of cramping or pain at ovulation time, and then just making a guesstimate 5 to 7 days post that day or time, and measuring your progesterone then. Or when you look at your cycle tracker, if you have a very regular period, you can go about 7 days back from the day your period is due, or the day your next period is due, and measure your progesterone then. So those are some options for progesterone. I feel like it can be complicated, and people have a lot of questions. So Let's see. I feel like my doctor expects the progesterone to be so much higher than other places. What is a high level progesterone and estrogen? Estrogen really varies. It really depends for, depending on where you are in your cycle. But progesterone, I like to see somewhere between 15 and 25 nanograms. So that's kind of helpful, I think, for anyone who is, just looking at their test results and not sure. Again, this is all about symptoms. What symptoms do you have? And what are you doing to address the symptoms? Because you guys can do all this testing and spend time and money on them. But if you're not going to take action around the low progesterone or the high estrogen, then it doesn't change anything. So that's really what this comes down to, is that the testing is really helpful and I'm a big proponent of it, but it's also not going to change the outcome. It's not going to change what you have to do on the tail end of the testing. And like I said, that involves changing diet and lifestyle and things like that, and making incremental changes. If there was one thing that I would recommend everyone do, it's try and focus on getting more sleep, because that will be incredibly helpful to your overall hormonal profile. Let's see. What if FSH is very low, hypothalamic amenorrhea? Yes, possibly. I don't know. Do you not have a period? It really depends on, what's going on there. And again, just so everyone knows, I can't make recommendations to you or make suggestions about one single hormone that might be low. I can't tell you what's going on with you specifically just by you saying low FSH, because that could mean so many different things. So just keep that in mind as well. If you don't ovulate, how do you know when to test? Well, are you getting a period? Because if you're getting a period, I just explained that. So checking your temperature is every day. So taking your basal temperature, you start first day of your period, which is day 1 of your cycle. You take your temperature first thing upon awakening every single morning. You input into an app. So I use the app Kindara. It's Kindara. And you just take that temperature every single day. And in the first half of your cycle, this is all in my book, by the way, everyone. Please buy my book. It's literally $20 on Amazon. It has a wealth of information. But yeah, so basically you take your temperature every day. Your temperature will be on the lower side in the first half of your cycle. So estrogen goes along, it keeps your temperature low. Progesterone kicks in after ovulation, and that raises your basal temperature. So you should see what is known as a biphasic pattern on your chart. And you'll see, lower temperatures and then a spike. So that's basically it. Okay. My TPO antibodies were 13. Does that mean I have Hashimoto's? Again, I can't tell you that. I really can't. That's, a conversation for a doctor, preferably a functional medicine doctor or a naturopathic doctor, or someone who can diagnose you, but I certainly can't do that. All right. Let's see. How to test when in your cycle. Okay. Oh yeah. Also, I wanted to say too, testosterone, SHBG, DHEA. So androgens. So these are, sort of like the male hormones, or they're responsible for the male characteristics, things like hair growth on your face, hair loss in the head, acne, things like that. So androgens are important, especially if you have, or you suspect you have PCOS, or your cycles are really irregular, or you're experiencing any of those symptoms like acne, like I said, hair growth on your face or your chest even, or even your back, hair loss on your head, greasy skin or hair. Those are, and weight gain that you feel like you just, no matter what you do, you're just putting on weight. So those are, I think it's really important to test those androgens. So free testosterone, total testosterone, DHEA, sometimes androstenedione. Those will give you a pretty clear picture of what's going on with those androgens and why you might be experiencing some of those symptoms. Sex hormone binding globulin, or SHBG. So that's another great hormone to test. So as its name implies, it binds up hormones. So particularly testosterone and some estrogen too, but testosterone in particular. So what happens with, for instance, people who are on the pill, in a lot of cases, SHBG rises while you're on the pill. So it seems to promote the rise of sex hormone binding globulin. So high SHBG potentially means lower testosterone. This is part of the reason why our testosterone is so low on the pill, The other part is because we're not ovulating. But yeah, so high SHBG, lower testosterone. Lower SHBG, higher testosterone. So when you test SHBG, that'll be really helpful in determining what's going on with your testosterone too. Because if it's low, it might be the part of the reason why your testosterone is high. And then of course, if it's high, it might be part of the reason your testosterone is low. So that's another great one to test. I'm trying to think what else. Oh, yes. Vitamin D. So it's not a hormone, but it kind of acts like a hormone in our bodies. And I feel like it just plays such a big role in so many different menstrual health problems that I'm a big proponent of testing vitamin D as well. So like I said, FSH, LH, estradiol, prolactin. So you test all of those on day 3. And then on days 19 to 21, if you ovulated on day 14, or if you have a 28-day cycle, or 5 to 7 days post-ovulation, you're going to test progesterone. You can test estradiol again at that time as well if you want to, because the numbers will be different. I feel like it's helpful to see estradiol at different phases of your cycle. You're going to test sex hormone binding globulin. You're going to test testosterone, free testosterone, so total and free, and then DHEAS. As well as your vitamin D, which you can test really at any time. So those are the basic hormones that I think everyone should be testing in order to get an idea of what's going on with your hormonal health. What else is there? Let's see. When is a good time to check your temperature? Okay, I already answered all that. Hi, Katie. So nice to see you. Okay, what are you educated in? Your job sounds so important. Me? Oh my God. Are you talking to me? I assume you are. I don't know. I'm a women's health coach. And so I have been doing this for a really long time now. It's probably been about 10 years. And I've done a ridiculous amount of training. And I've learned all this stuff over the years because I feel like so many women are coming to me and they're saying, I'm just not getting the answers that I need. And so I'm a big proponent of giving you the answers that you need and the information that you need so you can advocate for yourself, because we know our bodies better than anybody is going to know our bodies. And I think it's so important for us to know what the hell is going on with them and be able to advocate for ourselves when we go see our doctors and understand that this stuff isn't really that complicated. Your bodies are not that complicated. They're just responding to either external or internal stimuli, and they're responding with hormonal imbalances and symptoms. And so if you start to think of your symptoms and your hormonal imbalances as just signs from your body communicating to you that something is not quite right, then you can start to pivot and make changes, and you will see changes, you will see results. But it really comes down to knowing what's normal for your particular body. And like I said before, some of us are, we're just different. And so we might notice symptoms that others might not notice. And, our hormones might be acting up in a way that, others, they don't experience that. And so that's why I think it's good for us to know what's up with our own bodies. I will save this live. Don't worry. It's gonna live in my IGTV, I guess. Yeah. Okay. Are there any known connections between low progesterone and endometriosis? Oh yes, definitely. Lots of issues there. So low progesterone or progesterone resistance. So if you think of like insulin resistance, where our cells no longer respond to insulin properly, that's the step before something like full-blown diabetes. It's kind of the same thing with progesterone. There's progesterone resistance for the cells, and as a result, the progesterone isn't able to get into the cell and do its job the way someone without endometriosis might experience progesterone. So there's that, and then the low progesterone. I've seen that a lot with endometriosis. So it's really critical, and I've talked about this a lot, for us to make sure that we are ovulating. And ovulation can be challenging because our ovaries are up against a lot these days, ladies. I mean, it really is so challenging for our ovaries in this modern world because there are a lot of environmental toxins. We're sitting all day. As you can see, we're literally cutting off our bodies right where our ovaries are. We're sitting, I'm leaning forward talking to all of you. So there's that too, that's a big problem. So environmental toxins, huge amounts of stress. We're sitting like this for so long, so many hours in a day. There's either too much exercise or a lack of exercise. There's got to be a bit of a Goldilocks when it comes to exercise. Nutrient deficiencies is another one. I was just talking about all these nutrients that our ovaries need, and we're just not getting them, for the most part. This isn't, everybody, but generally speaking, we're not. And like I said, the stressors in our lives too. So all of this impacts our ovarian function, and we don't even really realize it. And so I feel like, we have to start to make small steps to change how we're living our lives in order to support our ovarian function. And the other thing I see a lot of too is primary ovarian insufficiency, also known as premature ovarian failure. And, this is where your ovaries stop working properly before perimenopause or menopause, so before the age of 40. And so I'm seeing this more and more. It's definitely on the rise, and I feel like people need to really be thinking about autoimmunity, about their gut health and their gut function, and what's going on with that as it pertains to immune function and potential autoimmunity, because there is interesting literature talking about the fact that your ovaries are, there's potential for them to not work properly if there's autoimmune disease. So we have to be thinking about all of these different things when it comes to our ovarian function. And like I said, all of these tests that I've just been talking about can tell you what's going on with your ovaries. It can give you such good information into that. I'll see if there's anything else here that I want to share, because I feel like we've already been talking for like 30 minutes. So, I want to share really quickly, and this is all in my hormone guide, by the way. You can get it for free if you order a Let's Get Checked test kit. All the links are in my bio, so if you are interested, go there. But I'll say this about FSH. So I wanted to share a little bit of the ranges. So for FSH, like I said, you want to test on either like between days 2 and 4 of your cycle, preferably day 3. For day 3, so you're looking at somewhere between 3 and 5. So 3 and 5. Let's see here, on days 2 to 4. I can't keep all of this stuff in my head. That's why I'm reading it. It's better that way. Yes. So the numbers between 3 and 5 are really good for days 2 to 4 of your cycle for FSH. 6 to 9 is also okay. I like to see it below 9 for sure. 10 and above can indicate something's up with your ovaries. So like they're not quite responding the way that they should be. And then anything over 28 is considered menopause. And, I've seen this happen before where girls in their 20s come to me, like late 20s, and their FSH is at 40. And, they've been on the birth control pill for a really long time, or, maybe they haven't been eating really well and they've been super stressed for the last decade. And, again, this isn't to blame anyone, but this is to really help you understand that this stuff is happening. And it's so important for us to know when something's wrong and to not be dismissed. If you feel something's wrong with your body or something's going on with your hormones and you go to your doctor and they're like, no, you're fine, you're good. Go find another doctor or advocate for yourself if you can't find another doctor with the current one, because that's not okay. I actually had a client a number of years ago who was 25, who had on and off periods for the previous 10 years. She was exercising a lot. She was on a plant-based diet, and she was, on the birth control pill. And so when she would come off the pill, her period would come like once a year. And the doctor was like, oh, you're fine. And then I looked at her test results and I was like, your FSH is like 35. What? How could anybody say you're fine? This is not fine at all. And so I just feel like, this is what happens. Sometimes this stuff is overlooked. And again, I get it. Like, doctors are, they're busy. They're hustling in a system that is really broken. So I get how this can happen, which is why you have to know what's up. So anyway, that's what's up with FSH. So LH, again, same day 3 testing. You're looking at somewhere between 1.9 and 12.5 for LH. So that's kind of what you're looking for there. The other thing with LH to keep in mind too is that LH can be higher in cases of PCOS. So if LH is elevated, that would be one indicator of PCOS. It's not a guaranteed, but it could be. And usually it's elevated above FSH, because FSH is usually a little higher than LH. But if LH is higher than FSH and it's elevated, that could be a sign of PCOS. So just keep that in mind. For estradiol on that day 3, like I was saying before, it's different for different parts of your cycle, right? So everyone keep that in mind too. It's different throughout the phases of your cycle because, of course, estrogen rises as you're in the lead up to ovulation. So, it'll change significantly. And then it drops significantly after ovulation and then has like a little bump in the mid-luteal phase, which you would catch if you're testing it with progesterone. So estradiol, like I said, you want to test on that day 3 as well. And if estradiol is elevated during that time, so the days 2 to 4, day 3, what could happen is it could be artificially suppressing FSH production. And so if it's doing that, then you might have high FSH and you don't even know that you do because your estradiol is elevated. So it's good to catch it there and then to try again when you're testing progesterone too. And so for estrogen, you're looking like less than 80 picograms on day 3 of your cycle. And then in ovulation, it's probably about 150 to 350. Again, like look at the ranges that your doctor or your lab has just to kind of see, because those are not wrong or abnormal or anything like that. It's just helpful to kind of get an idea of what's normal and what's not according to that particular lab. Okay, questions. I feel like there are a lot more questions here. Oh my gosh. Do you recommend menstrual cups? Yeah, if you want to use them. I don't use them personally. I use period underwear because those are what work for me. And I find that menstrual cups are really hard to use personally, but lots of people love them and swear by them. And then there are others who are like, no, they're not for me. So it depends on what is preferable for you. Do you usually see increased AMH with increased FSH? Not necessarily, no. So AMH, that's another hormone. I actually didn't put it in my guide. And the reason I didn't put it in my guide is because I find that AMH is it's so controversial and it's so charged. It's like this one hormone that everyone's like, oh my God, my fertility, everything's hanging on the balance due to this AMH number. I have seen AMH rise when it's really low with just 3 months of dietary and lifestyle changes, like really targeted changes. So just keep in mind, your hormones change, guys. They don't just like stay stagnant. So remember, AMH is not going to be like the sole determinant of whether you can have a child or not. And I feel like that's kind of what it's made out to be. And like I said, hormones change based on our lifestyles and how we change and live our lives. So keep that in mind too. AMH that's lower, yes, it's certainly a sign that your ovarian function is not where it's supposed to be, but that's a good thing to know, especially when you're younger, so you can start to make changes for as you get older. And this is not just about fertility. This is about our health, right? We're not just like vessels for babies. We actually want to have our ovaries working the way they're supposed to work for our overall health at any stage of the menstrual life cycle. Whether you're 18 or 32 or 44, it doesn't matter. We really want our ovaries to work properly because we're producing estrogen and progesterone and testosterone and and AMH as well, and other hormones that play a role in some aspect of our health. Like estrogen and progesterone play a role in our bone health. And don't think because you're 25 that you're just like this doesn't apply to you, because I've seen 25-year-olds with osteopenia, which is the precursor to osteoporosis, because they've been on the pill for so long and their bodies are not producing enough estrogen. So remember that. They also play a role in heart health. Progesterone is huge for brain function, mood stabilization. I could go on and on. Your hair, your skin, your nails, your everything. You're like everything, literally. And yet we always boil these hormones down to our menstrual cycles and our fertility, as if that's all we do. That's all the female body is good for. It kind of drives me crazy, and I feel a little ranty about it because I think that all the time I hear these kinds of stories like, oh yeah, well, my doctor said if I'm not ovulating by whatever date, then just come back and then we'll figure it out from there. And, we'll do fertility treatments or we'll start hormones or whatever. And I'm just like, yeah, but that's not all you're here for. That can't be just it. We would never do that to men. I don't think we would ever say, oh yeah, well, your testosterone is really in the tank. Just come back when you're ready to have a baby. Like, are you freaking kidding me? That would just never happen. So just keep in mind that these hormones play a role in so much of your physical and mental and emotional function that if you're operating at a hormone deficit, whether that's AMH or progesterone or whatever, then that's problematic for your overall health. So anyway, back to AMH. Like I said, it can change. If it's usually when high AMH is another indicator of PCOS, so I tend to see that sometimes too. But again, it really depends. I tell people to sort of stay away from that because it is such a charged hormone, and just do the testing that I had mentioned, because I feel like that's a good place to start. It's a good baseline. And again, most of us just need a baseline. We just need to know what's going on with these very basic hormones so that we can, make decisions about how we're going to improve our health. Okay, let's see. Is it safe to use hormone replacement therapy? Your opinion, please. I can't give that opinion. It really is a question that you need to have a conversation with your doctor. I am a proponent of bioidentical hormone replacement therapy. I don't know enough about traditional hormone replacement therapy to really have an opinion about it. I just much prefer the bioidenticals because those to me are the safest. So that's something I certainly would recommend you have a conversation with a doctor with. And again, this is not your regular mainstream doctor may be into the bioidenticals. You'd really have to have that conversation. But a naturopathic doctor or some sort of alternative type doctor would be able to give you probably much more information about that. Let's see. Is a hormone test lab from the doctor accurate for testing hormones? I'm not sure what that question means. You're going to have to rephrase that. I love the saying there are periods are monthly report cards. Yep, I know. I talk about it all the time. I feel like they're a barometer for your overall health for sure. And if we are, I talked about this in my book a lot. The fact that if your period is going crazy, if you're having symptoms that are disrupting your life, that means something else is going on. Your period is not just your period. Your period is not really the problem. It's actually what is happening below the surface that you need to start addressing, because your period is just a reflection of whatever issue is happening in your body, and it'll tell you via your period. Men do not have this. Women are we're the ones who have this built-in internal warning system, and like I said, your periods will let you know when there's something off. Okay. Hi, Angelique. You're so funny. Hi, another amazing lady. Oh my God. Hi, Angelique. How are you? I need to catch up with you. Okay. Anyone else? I feel like I have like a few more minutes now. And like I said, if you're not getting the testing that you need from your doctor, Let's Get Checked is really great. I recommend the female hormone test kit and the progesterone test kit. You can do those together. That'll give you almost all of those hormones I was just talking about. They also have vitamin D. They also have a couple different things. They have an iron test as well. Iron is another one, everyone. So if you are iron deficient, that could lead to lighter, scantier periods. If you are iron deficient, you may also have heavier periods, because the number one cause in women of childbearing age for low iron is heavy bleeding every single month. So just keep that in mind as well. If you are experiencing heavy bleeding every single month, you might want to test your thyroid, and you might want to do iron as well. So the thyroid I talked about in the post today, and with the thyroid, your thyroid hormone impacts your ovarian function too. I told you it's all connected. And if you are, if your thyroid isn't working the way it's supposed to, it can have huge implications for your ovaries. So thyroid disease, whether it's hyperthyroidism or hypothyroidism, impacts your ovarian function, your ability to ovulate consistently. So if you're not ovulating consistently, typically what happens is you end up in a low progesterone state, because you need ovulation to make enough progesterone. And if you are not ovulating consistently and you have this lower progesterone, you may end up in this estrogen dominant state, meaning low progesterone in relation to estrogen. It's kind of like a little seesaw. And what will happen is, this further exacerbates the thyroid problem, because you need progesterone for your thyroid to work. You need your thyroid for your ovaries to work and make progesterone. See where I'm going with all of this is that it's not just like one thing, and we have to start with the basics. And Angelique talks about this a lot too in her book and on her profile as well. And if any of you are in the UK or anywhere really, because I know Angelique, you have clients everywhere, talk to Angelique because she's legit. But seriously, like, this is one of those things where, we have to start with the basics. Like, you just have to start with getting more sleep and thinking about ways to slow down that stress response if you are really stressed. And then of course, like the food and supplement side of things too. So, okay, let's see what else. What do you recommend for people with PCOS? Do you have my book? Because that's what I recommend. I literally recommend the 6-week protocol that's in my book. I can't, just make specific recommendations, but I feel like so many of us are spending so much money on supplements. We're spending huge amounts of money on expensive testing, and we're not doing the basics. Like, we're literally not even doing the basics. We're not making sure that we get 7 to 8 hours of sleep a night. We're not making sure that we reduce our screen time in the middle of the night, because I know many of us are falling asleep to screens. We're not making sure that we're just getting 3 regular normal meals a day that balance our blood sugar. We're not even like thinking about what's happening with our stress. So I feel as though we have to get back to basics. The foundational components of hormonal health cannot be overstated. And, and I think, I know, Angelique, I know you would agree with me on this, is that we are at the point where we have to get back to those basics. Do not waste your money on $250 worth of supplements every month if you're not going to do those basic things. They're not going to help you. You're never going to see the results that you want to see. And what's worse, and just so you all know this, because I'm 41, so I'm definitely in that range now where I'm like, oh wow, yeah, so I'm feeling it. And if you don't take care of your health in your 20s and your 30s, you're going to feel it really bad in your 40s. Trust me when I say this. I'm speaking from experience. The last 2 years of writing the book and going through the stress of moving right in the middle of writing the book, and then not having a home for a year because we were traveling around, and then the pandemic happened, and then it took even longer. We were trying to buy a house, the whole thing. Anyway, the point is that has seriously taken a toll on me. And I think if I was 25, yeah, I'd have probably been just fine. But now I feel so burnt out, and I'm so like, I just need to take like 6 months off. So just remember that we become less hormonally resilient as time goes by. And if you're not taking care of yourself in your 20s and 30s, it really does catch up. I feel like the bill always comes due, whether it's now or later on. And so we have to do this for ourselves. We are that important. You are worth it. I really believe that. Like, you guys are all worth it. You're worth it to take care of yourself in a way that is going to ensure your longevity later on. So, all right. Yes. Start with the basics. Get the foundation right. I agree. What do you think about HTMA testing of the hair tissue? You know what? I'm actually about to do that. I still haven't done it. It's been about 2 months since I got the kit. And you know who does this is the organic dietitian. Her name's Sarah. I forgot Sarah's last name, but because it's kind of hard to say, but you can check her out on Instagram. So she's a big proponent of that, and that's who I'm doing it with. And I'll let you guys know when I do it. But I plan to, yeah. HCG hormone to induce the body, increase the production of progesterone and estrogen. I can't talk about that either. Sorry. That is not my forte. I just feel really strongly, again, that if you're going to take HCG or some other hormone, are you doing all the other things I just talked about? Because you can't fix hormones by taking more hormones. It doesn't fix the problem that's causing the hormone problem in the first place. Do you see what I'm saying? So again, like, I get it. Sometimes we need to take thyroid hormone, we need to take progesterone, things like that. There's nothing wrong with that. But I just, I'm obviously not a doctor. I'm not trained in hormone replacement therapy, so I can't speak to that. But I just want you to understand that we cannot take hormones to fix our hormones. Like, we actually have to fix the causes of the hormone imbalances, or at least attempt to address them before taking a whole bunch of hormones. It just doesn't make sense. And it's just going to leave you in a situation where you might have further hormonal imbalances, or you're just not going to get the results that you're looking for. So the way to make more progesterone is to ovulate and have healthy ovulation. We talk about this a lot, like you need a diet that is full of nutrients, and you need a diet that balances your blood sugar and supports your liver function and your gut health. All of those play a role in how your body produces progesterone. So just some last minute thoughts about hormones. All right, how good is it to test hormones in perimenopause as they behave like crazy? It's fine. This is something else too that I think we need to debunk a bit. Perimenopause does not mean that your hormones are crazy. It just doesn't mean that. It's not supposed to mean that. We're not supposed to have crazy ass hormones in perimenopause or even in menopause. Like, the shit isn't supposed to hit the fan when you turn 40. It's just not meant to be that way. But it is that way because of this ridiculous world that we live in. This society is not conducive to women's health. It's not at all. And first of all, it's such a patriarchal society. Our bodies are monthly cyclical, not daily cyclical. And as a result, we go, just like men do. And we're expected to, and it's rewarded. And it's really unfortunate because it comes at the cost of our health. And so when we're in perimenopause and we feel horrible, it's likely because we've been hustling our asses off for the last 15 to 20 years to sort of live up to an expectation in our society that was never meant for us to begin with. And I really feel so strongly that you should be testing your hormones if they are crazy in perimenopause. Do exactly what I just described for hormone testing. Test 5 to 7 days post-ovulation. You can track your cycle. You can know so much of what's going on with your body just by tracking your cycle. I said this earlier and not everyone was here at that time, but just remember that it doesn't matter where you are in the menstrual life cycle. You can test your hormones to figure out what's going on. I talk about this extensively in my hormone testing cheat sheet because I feel really strongly that we have to know what is going on with our bodies in order to make decisions about them. And if you understand that, maybe your ovulation is a little bit off in perimenopause, you'll want to support your ovarian function so that they are producing as much progesterone as you need and they're producing as much estradiol and testosterone as your body needs, at least for those final 5 to 10 years before they close up shop for good. And then menopause is not as tumultuous because your perimenopause wasn't as tumultuous. So it's really a ripple effect. I've talked about this a lot and I know I sound like a broken record. And I have my own lessons to learn, and Angelique knows I got back some hormone test results recently that were so shocking to me, and I'll talk about it probably in a few weeks when I'm over it. But and again, for me, I know that the elephant in the room is the amount of stress I've been under for the last 2 to 4 years with humongous deadlines. A publisher deadline is no joke. I've learned that the hard way. And, and all of this other upheaval in my life. And so for me, it was really shocking because I feel like I've been taking care of myself in other ways, but it's, there's pieces of the puzzle, right? And the pie, and they all fit together. And so just keep that in mind too, that you may be doing great with your diet, but your stress is completely out of control and unsustainable, which is what it's felt like for me. And now I'm like, oh, wow. Okay. This is a major wake up call. So just keep that all in mind. And yes, absolutely test your hormones in perimenopause according to the guidelines I just talked about. Okay. Oh, you're welcome. You're welcome. Oh, I'm so glad. Yes, I'm so happy to hear this. I've been following your Harness Your Hormones program and I quit eating gluten, dairy products, and coffee, and I feel great. Even sometimes I have mood swings. Thank you so much. Oh my gosh, that's so good to hear. I'm so happy to hear that. This is it, ladies. We have a lot more control over our lives than we think we do. And I know that it sometimes feels really, really hard to make changes, but you could just start with one thing, the one thing that feels like it's really disrupting your life. And so I've been really focused on getting more sleep, like at least 8 hours every night. And, and you have to put things in place, right? And I think that at some point you have to put yourself first. And I know that's really difficult when there's families and kids and jobs and all of the ridiculous responsibilities that we have, but you're going to show up better for your kids and your family and your partner or whoever's in your life. You're going to show up better for yourself when you start to make yourself a priority. There's no winning in martyrdom. There's just not. Being a martyr does not serve anyone. It certainly does not serve yourself. So just keep that in mind and, and think of ways that you can start to take care of yourself, little ways. Even if it's like, I'm just going to drink a little less coffee if I experience lots of anxiety. Maybe it's the coffee, so there's lots of ways for us to pay attention to what's going on with our bodies and make changes from there. All right. I have been on here for nearly an hour. I can't believe that. Like I said, there are probably a few other questions I missed, so I apologize if I did miss them because there were so many here. But I'm always open. My DMs are a little crazy, but I do my best to reply to those there. And also you have a lot of options. The link is in my bio for hormone testing to do on your own, You should also get on my mailing list. I'm mailing about this for the rest of the week. I'm talking about hormone testing, progesterone, all the different female hormones. I'm talking about your thyroid, through the weekend. So you can still get on there. The link is also in my bio to do that. My hormone testing cheat sheet is going to be on my website next week. If you buy a Let's Get Checked test kit, you get it for free. It's got a lot of this information I was talking about and then some. And again, it pays to be informed. And knowledge is power, and we have that ability. Don't ever let anyone make you feel like you don't know what the hell's wrong with your body, or you're an idiot for asking questions, or any of these things that I've heard over the years and also experienced myself. Just remember that you can make these incremental changes and you will start to feel better. I think that our bodies are not as complicated as we've been led to believe, and they respond to even just small changes. They respond really well. And so I think that that's really where we should all start. Okay, let's see. Final questions. Can teens follow Harness Your Hormones? Absolutely. Yes, it's made for anyone, any stage of the menstrual life cycle. I've had women in perimenopause and menopause do it, as well as teenagers and everyone in between. So yes, I think that it's hugely helpful. It's also got like lots of family-friendly recipes. So that's one of my biggest questions I get actually about it. So yes, anyone can really follow it. And it's so cheap. It's $27. It's amazing. And it's a full 28-day program that you could do anytime. Intermittent fasting, good for PCOS. I don't know. It's a good question. It depends. It honestly depends. It depends on your body and how you respond. I'm a big proponent of women eating food and getting enough calories in, because I find that our tendency is towards deprivation and restriction. It's just kind of part of our society that we live in. But I think that, a certain amount of fasting can be really helpful. I just think that we should be more focused on balanced blood sugar. I explain all of this in great detail in my blood sugar protocol. That's again through the link in bio on my website, on the programs page. I also explain this in my book, Fix Your Period. I tell you exactly how to test your blood sugar. For me personally, if everyone were just focused on balancing their blood sugar, testing it and experimenting with the food that they're eating, that would change everything, intermittent fasting or not. Somebody said the other day, I can't remember who it was, that they thought intermittent fasting was just another way of women saying they're starving themselves. And I thought that was really interesting. And I know a lot of doctors who are big intermittent fasting proponents, and then I know a lot of others who are not. So ultimately, you have to listen to yourself. That's really what it comes down to, and whether your body responds positively or negatively to it. Yes, the guide does ask for an order number. It's free with the Let's Get Checked test kit order. And I'm going to have it on my website next week, so you can get it then. I'll send out an email about that. So you can, if you sign up for my mailing list, then you can get it. You'll get the email. All right. How to control a big appetite when estrogen. I can't answer that question either. Like, how to lose weight if I've gained so much weight due to increased appetite. I really can't answer that. I'm so sorry. I don't have your health history, and so I don't really know what's going on there. I think that if you're on an estradiol patch, you need to talk to your prescribing practitioner about that, or hire someone to help you specifically with the appetite and the nutrition side of things. All right. I think that's it. Yes, that's it. Okay. Everyone, thank you so much for being here. I'll be back again. And if you have more questions, then hit me up in the DMs and I will do my best to answer them.